Okay, now we have all our pieces together, and I kind of lied. You do want to stick to a little bit of a step-by-step thing with this when we're reassembling. It'll make life a lot easier. We're going to start by reinstalling our little float lever. As we mentioned in the last video, we took the spring, or the screen, from the old one and popped it onto our new one here. We're going to pop that guy in there, and you got your rubber O-ring on there. It's going to give you some resistance, so you kind of want to get a good little firm press in there. Pop that back around. All right, before you screw that in, get you a little, I don't know, little float needle. Like I said, I'm not 100% on the names of all these things, but I know they all suck to work with. Pop yonder back in here. Had some really awesome day lighting for this earlier. Now I gotta use some kitchen lighting. Sorry. Alright. And then from here, our float bowl can literally slide it into place. Okay. And then our pin is going to come back in. Now your pin is designed in such a way that up here towards the end, it actually is slightly wider. So when you give it that final peen inside, it'll tighten up enough to sit in place. That's why we had to force it out earlier. Oh, come on. Maybe I'm going in the wrong way. Perhaps. I mean, just get it in there. Doesn't matter which side that it's on. All right, again, so now we're down to a last little bit. You remember how it was to get it out, so we're just going to clamp on and force it back in. Just like that. Now, before you go capping up your float bowl and everything, hold off because we're going to measure these before we close everything up for good. Taking a peek on down, making sure we're clear of any debris. Same with all these little ports. You want to make sure you don't have any dirt or water or any dust or anything left in them before we start putting these tiny little float jets in everywhere, which are going to determine how fast we drive and whether or not we die at a high speed. Just kidding, everyone. Still safer than crocodile wrestling, so leave me alone. Alright, dropping in. Now, just a quick note on this guy, I guess we should make note of is the number of your jet holes you have, one on one side and two on the other. Alright, when you drop it in, it's not gonna be up, down, left, right for your notching. You're actually going to be slightly off. So when it's down there, it's going to sit at a diagonal angle to make sure your lines are squared up properly. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you'll see what you mean. Just make sure the holes are lining up with your jets so that actual air and gasoline can get through, I suppose is what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way. Now, we got the little rubber cap. We're going to pop back in. My problem I'm having is that one of them I have is a little loose. I'm not really sure how necessary they are, but the way I look at it is that there was a team of researchers that spent millions of dollars designing this thing. I'm a schmuck who's putzing around in my garage with it. I'm gonna trust that they had a reason to do this. All right. So again, before we finish up here now, got this little bad boy. I'm going to call that our pipe. Our pied carburetor piper pipe. When reinserting this, you're going to see you have a notch on the edge here. And when we pop it in through the top hole here, it's going to end up in here. But you can look inside the barrel. You'll see a slight little notch in there. So we're going to want this to fall in and line up with that. I find it an easy way to do it is just to simply pop it in through the top here. Now I got longer fingers. Some people might want to use, maybe I don't have longer fingers. Let's just do a slight easy way here. Again, lightly, gently, daintily, daintily. If you ever knew the word, this is the time to use it. We're going to slide that in, and then you see, hold on, I'm going to try to hold that for us here. When we get down to the edge here, we are lining up with that notch. All right. Okay, flush. That's what we like. Now you want to be careful to hold that, because if you tip it, it might fall back out again. That's why while we're holding that into place, get our O-ring, pop it in there, make it nice and flush. We like when things are flush. This guy again, I'm gonna call him, I don't know, flat dumpy screw guy. Usually put these on enough until you can hand tighten it until it gets a little snug. It is applying pressure to the rubber O-ring, but meanwhile the channel that we just inserted, the Pied Piper flute here, it's got the little valve that's going to open up into this chamber. This controls how much of that air is going in here. So if you overdo it, you're going to completely close off that opening. But if you don't do it enough, it's going to be wide open. Okay, we're going to have problems later on. So I usually put it on a good hand tighten crank, which keeps it about halfway. I usually tune the carbs out from there. Again, I'm a daily rider going around town a couple miles a day, so I'm not looking for peak sport performance out of this thing. I just need it to turn on in the morning. I think I speak for a lot of us. All right, I'm going to take a break here.